All right, well, welcome back to Live with Rick and Tyler, and we are coming to you live again to talk just kind of a back and forth conversation style talk. We started last week doing a couple of these together, and we talked in our last one about just more of a personal side, shared a little bit more about who we are, and we are going to continue today, but today's topic is more about church, and this is taking the place, so if you're joining us, or if this is when you watch this, if this is the first time you're checking out Live with Rick and Tyler, which has an incredible graphic that
graphics
we put
package
together. Yeah, very proud of our graphic.
Marketing team spent.
Hey, just so you know, our arms are the same size. Just so you know.
That's a nice fiction.
They're the same size. I had to make mine bigger to make them the same size, but they're the same size.
Photoshopped.
But we are. This is kind of taking the place of a video series that we were putting together for the church called Behind the Curtain. We will finish filming those topics and putting those out there once we can come back together safely. So we wanted to do something inside of this to help us kind of continue to share with you guys and just kind of walk through this together, and maybe something a little bit different that we've never done before and never really even thought about doing. So one of the things that this pandemic is doing for us is maybe causing us to be a little bit more intentional or innovative, right?
Think outside the box a little bit.
Think outside the box. This is definitely not something we would have ever thought about doing or putting together, and so here we are, and this is again Live with Rick and Tyler. We're talking about church today, some questions. If you have questions, Tom is in the room with us. He will be sharing questions with us. If you have those questions, put those in the comment section, and
all your questions,
we will do our best to answer them. So not to diminish just the situation, there are a lot of hurting people out there, so we want to make sure that you understand we're not being insensitive to that. We are going to try and have a little bit of fun and create some levity, but we also recognize the people that are hurting, people in our church that are hurting, people around our community that are hurting, certainly praying and processing all that we can do to serve and help them through this, and hoping that we are going to come to the other side pretty soon. In thinking about having some levity, I went ahead and put some pictures on here that not pictures of you, but I was actually thinking of. So if you haven't seen our previous video, you might want to go out and check that out to get caught up on the pictures we shared of Tyler from when we dyed his hair. These are not, but and then I forgot that you'd actually. So with the pandemic. They're talking about wearing masks. Everybody should be wearing masks and having masks and all this stuff. And I found this online. I saw this online, and I was thinking about you and your love of food and how much you're really excited to see this photo. I'm very nervous.
I'm terrified as to what's about to happen.
It has nothing to do with you, but then I forgot that you don't even like this particular food item, which I think is a travesty. But these are out there now. They're bacon masks. So when I was thinking about, man, if you have to wear a mask all the time, this is the kind of mask that I'm probably wearing.
Wouldn't that just make you really hungry and want to eat bacon?
I think I would be eating my mask. That's why I'd have to make a lot of them. There had to be a lot of these masks around.
So these made out of bacon?
These are bacon masks, made completely out of bacon.
Those would not work for most people.
Yeah.
They'd just eat them.
Right. I mean, if you're going to, might as well feed yourself as you walk around with your mask. Hopefully no virus can get through the fat. In
no, there's no way it makes it through that grease. Can survive on surfaces for like 2 weeks, but the grease will kill it.
So I just thought about, just because you love food, and anybody who knows you knows your love of food, but then I realized you don't even like bacon, which again is it's sad. It's
okay.
Right.
There's a whole. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's just sad that you don't. Why don't you like bacon?
I don't understand how to explain it. It's just there's something about the flavor of it.
So we're just going to chalk this up to a Tyler weird.
It is absolutely. Yeah. There's 3 foods that I have that I don't like that I know are weird, and that I know it's weird. I just don't like them, and I want to like them so that I can be normal, but I don't. And so
so bacon is one of them.
Bacon is one of them.
What are the other 2?
I don't like peanut butter.
Peanut butter.
Yeah.
Wow.
And unless you surround it in a copious amount of chocolate, I don't like it. When you put enough chocolate around peanut butter, it's fine. And I don't like fruit pies.
Didn't see that one coming.
Like, no.
I didn't. Fruit pies.
Like, I like fruit to be fruit, and I like dessert to be dessert. I don't like.
You don't like any type of pie.
Fruit. Like, I love pie, but I don't like fruit pie.
Like an apple pie.
Apple pie,
rhubarb.
Yep, all that.
You don't like blueberry.
Yeah, I'm like, if God wanted fruit to be hot, he'd have put it on the tree that way.
Apple pie is fruit, I thought.
It is.
Yeah,
he
I don't
like
like fruit pie. Right. That's it. Because apple pie is very popular.
Do you like
That's why
pumpkin pie?
So
what kind of pies do you like?
I like Oreo pie. I like chocolate pies, coconut pies, any kind of pie that's got some chocolate to it. But I feel like fruit should be fruit.
So if they put chocolate in the apple pie, you still wouldn't go for it?
No.
Like chocolate apple pie?
No.
Wow.
It's just fruit.
Sad.
Fruit. I like fruit
Really
by its own. I don't feel like you need to
you're
change
missing out on
fruit.
so many things. I'm
I also
sure
don't feel
people
like you
can
should
make
heat
some
it.
comments
Like, why do you want
about
fruit
how
to be
much
hot?
you're missing out on.
I know. I get it.
You're
It's
missing
weird.
out on bacon, peanut
Don't-
butter, and fruit pies.
Don't message me about it. I know that it's weird.
Michael says, so you like 2 pies then.
True. True. He likes 2 pies. Out of all the pies you could actually have in the world, you like 2 of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it?
Coconut of fruit?
It probably is considered a fruit.
So there
I
is
like
one
coconut.
fruit
Okay.
pie.
I don't typically like most fruit pies are very popular. I don't like just because
Okay.
I like to eat that fruit at the temperature that it's supposed to be. Not
You be you,
baked.
man. You
Yeah.
be you. Don't let anybody try to tell you not to be you.
that's all I hear. Nobody talked to me if they weren't telling me not to be me.
All right, so we are into the topic of church today.
Yeah.
I have some questions for us, and if you guys have questions out there, go ahead and put those in the comments. So I also saw this online as well. Thought it would be relevant for our discussion today. It's a conversation between Satan and God, and Satan says, with COVID-19, I
Yes.
closed your churches, and God says, on the contrary, I just opened one in every home. And so
I think that God has a halo triangle in this picture.
I'm not exactly sure, why
Maybe the
some of this
Trinity?
is like it is in the artwork side, but I do like kind of the conversation that it has, potentially hopefully produce churches in everybody's home as they're gathering to either watch online or do devotions and all that kind of stuff.
The
You're just going to
devil's
keep going to the artwork, aren't
Yeah,
you?
he's always an elf, man. He's always got pointy ears. I'm like, why does he?
I mean, I
Why
can't.
does he have elf
He
ears?
looks like an elf and a genie because look at
Right.
his. He's got the genie
Yeah.
beard,
You're
and I
right.
don't know why this person put it like that. I just like what he said. So,
No, it's good.
anyways, so a couple questions here. When it comes to church, questions that people ask you about church are connected to what? Like, what's the most common question that you get asked when they're asking you about, our church and who we are and that type of thing?
I think I get a lot of them that have to do with essentially the denominational distinctions.
Yeah.
So what denomination are we? People
Right.
always want to know that. There's some, were you guys, Southern Baptist and all this and that. Then things related to that, how we view baptism tends to come up a lot. Speaking in tongues comes up in bursts. It seems like there'll be like 5 people, and then there'll be nothing, and then there'll be like 7 people, and then there'll be nothing for a while. But that one is very, very common in our view on speaking in tongues.
That's true with just about all those types of gifts as well. So
yeah, that one just tends to get. It seems like it makes the highlight a lot more.
Right.
So that one's pretty common. And then what was the other one that I get? Well, those are probably the 2 biggest ones that I.
Denomination one, I think, is probably the one I get the most when people are asking about our church and wanting to understand or know more, or have some clarifying information for who we are. Want to know kind of our affiliation, our connection to other, either whether it's denominationally or different church networks, that type of thing. That seems to be a pretty common one that's at the top of the list. When they ask and you kind of get through that question. And they maybe ask for some more information about the church. How do you describe us? Like how is it? And do you use if you get? And I think I talked about this the last time. Like if we're at a grocery store, at a gas station, you see someone, or someone comes up to you because they know your role here, that you're a part of the church here or something, and they're asking you, hey, tell me more about your church, or someone introduces you that goes to our church to someone who doesn't go to our church, and they want to know more about the church. How do you kind of describe our church when they ask?
Unique is usually one of the words that I go to
because of artwork like this.
because of our art
of the
skills.
people who work here.
Yes. Well, one of the things is like most places, because I've lived in a lot of different places, and most of them have a culture. You can learn the culture, you figure out the culture, and then you can kind of get your thumb on the pulse of that culture to understand. Here's the strengths, the weaknesses, the tendencies, and things like that. Here, it's really weird because you've got your Northerners who are very Northern in their style,
very good
the way they talk, right? But the way they talk, the attitude that they have, things like that. There's very distinctive things about. It's not in a bad way. It's very different from your Southerners who are local, and then you got people that came from the north and they went to Florida, like Florida's too hot, so they bounced back to here.
Those are pretty rare, though.
Yeah. But then you get your very rare locals that actually grew up here, and it's just your Southern hospitality and pace of life is so different than the North, and so it's kind of weird because usually in a lot of places that I've lived, your younger people are going really fast, and your older people are starting to slow down.
Okay.
But a lot of our older people are from the North, and so our older people are used to going really fast, and a lot of our younger people are like from here or from the South, and so they're going kind of slow because there's like Southern, we just kind of go at I think it's because all the fried food, we move at our own little tempo. But it's just you get these
backwards.
different, and then like our early service tends to have more people and tends to be more responsive and more energetic than the late service, and tends to have more of the young people. And like, this is the only church I've ever heard of where that's the case. Usually your latest service has your youngest crowd and is super loud, and that's the energy one, and then your other stuff is more traditional. So where everything's just kind of flipped and different, and so it's difficult to really pin down exactly.
So basically, take everything that you understand about church and then flip it upside down, and that's who we are.
If you take everything you know about church and draw a big question mark over it, that's kind of who we are. So no, it's a very unique thing, and it's exciting, but it's just usually when you're at a place long enough, you can start to predict how things are going to go.
Sure.
And here it's really difficult to accurately predict consistently. I mean, you get lucky on a guess, but you spend a lot of time going like, I don't know, we're going to try it, and hopefully it'll go well.
No, I think you're right. I think some things play into that. I mean, I think the transient nature of our community plays into the unpredictability and the fact that there's not going to be a lot of traditions that are built, or the way things are kind of that whole mentality. That's not, because people are moving in from a lot of different locations and come from a lot of different backgrounds. We truly are a good picture, or maybe even a great picture of a melting pot of a community. Our church, I think, reflects that a lot, and it's gotten more reflective of that over the years, which I'm super grateful and thankful for God for letting us see that picture of heaven with the diversity that we have, and very, very excited about as He continues to do more of that.
Right.
But just knowing that some people want to kind of know some of those things and how we would describe it. So what makes our church our church? I mean, what would you say makes our church our church? What, like our DNA, or is it style? Is it content? Is there anything, or is it a mixture of things?
Yeah, I think, for here, it seems to me that it's becoming increasingly uncommon for a church to really be biblically focused from a really strong point. Not like, okay, we reference the Bible, or we're talking about it a little bit, but it goes like, we're gonna talk about the Bible. We're gonna really emphasize it to a level that I think is deeper than a lot of places. And I think that's something that I really like, because I feel like that's important. Like when I went to college and stuff, and I realized I grew up in church and I didn't really understand as much as I should have with 18 years of church under me, to go to a Bible college. I'm like, I know nothing. And so that's something that I really value and appreciate, is just the emphasis on the word and the emphasis on what God says. Because I think a lot of pastors, and not in a critical way, but they spend a lot of time sharing what they think and how they feel and their preferences and their attitudes and stuff. And so I think we're really, one of the things I really love about it is I think we're really rooted in, and because I think you and I both do that the same, is like, if I'm going to tell you what I feel, it's based on the scripture. It's here's how I understand the scripture.
Right,
I don't care to tell you my political position. I don't care to tell you about this or that, because I want everything I say and do to be shaped by scripture. So the most that's going to happen is interpretive. Here's how I understand this scripture.
Right.
And then everybody can kind of take that and operate from there instead of us just saying, like, here's how I think you should handle this situation. Like,
right.
I
Right.
I grew up in that, and it's not that it's wrong. It's just not all that helpful for people who are trying to learn and grow themselves.
Right.
And just become kind of carbon copies of lower, reduced versions of your pastor.
Sure. Yeah. And the more you kind of make it how you would do it personally and not about how God would instruct us or inform us to do it, then the farther away you're moving them from the Bible being the center or the
Right.
authoritative word in their life and stuff. And so, always helping them interpret or understand the scenario of life through the wisdom of Scripture and through God's word is what we want to always try to do. Not, obviously we're not perfect in that, and there have been times where we've maybe missed, but we try our best to do that. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, content-wise, style-wise, we're definitely scripturally based, focused on that. Do you have a question, Tom? You raising your hand back there?
Couldn't tell if you were raising your hand or stretching.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do like a one-hander like that, and then
Okay.
you can just finish up your thought. But someone did ask, how do you explain to someone then what a non-denominational church is?
It's a good question. It's a good question. You want to take a stab at that?
So, denominations tend to be defined by a particular set of teachings that are unique to that denomination. So they're sort of distinctives that set that denomination apart from others. So your Christian church, your Restoration movement tends to be distinctive based on how they view baptism and treating it as an essential for salvation. Not every Christian church is that way, but it's defining characteristic. And so you have sort of major characteristics that kind of go into that denomination, and then you typically have kind of a, not like a parachurch, but sort of a governing type of a board that doesn't have necessarily authority over all the churches in that, but tends to have a lot of influence over those churches within the Southern Baptist Convention. You have a kind of a convention that tends to run and have a lot of influence and connectivity between the churches. Non-denominational churches have the strength of being very independent and able to freely move. They can build their theology to be as that church understands it to be, without what you would call high church influence coming down from someone else telling you what you need to teach or be about. But you don't always have that same ability to connect and build relationships with them. You have to be more intentional about that. Whereas in a denomination, you've got your places.
It's kind of pre-built. It's already in. I agree. I think one of maybe the easier ways to understand it is, and I use this word just in this context, that when you think of denominations and we're not a part, we're independent in that regard. We're kind of by ourselves. We're autonomous. We operate autonomously with our own elder board, our own leadership. And you're right. There's pros and cons. One of the ways that I've always tried to explain, non-denominational, or at least going back to that question, like, who you are as a church is, we are a Christ-centered Bible teaching church. And, if you couldn't, we're not really going to try and connect ourselves to a particular denomination like Southern Baptist or Presbyterian or anything like that. We're just going to simply say we are Christ-centered and Bible teaching, and that's what we stay focused on, and that's kind of what governs or guides our direction as long as we stay within, that path or on that path. And so I think, when it comes to non-denominational, people hear that, and fair enough, it is a little ambiguous, but I think it also is, don't try to overthink it or over process it. It just simply means we're not affiliated, connected to, or governed by a particular denomination of Protestantism that's out there. So
you think of denominations like a group, right? Here's a group of people that all agree on, you call it B theology, minor theology, non-essential theologies, because if you don't have essential theology, you're not Christian. You're not talking about a different denomination, you're talking about a different religion. So they're groupings of how you handle the minor issues, not the major issues. Non-denominational churches are churches that don't belong to a grouping. We exist kind of between boxes.
And I think what you pointed out, one of the harder parts of being non-denominational is not having a built-in network of other, churches with pastors who are kind of walking through the same thing. You got to work harder at making those connections and building those relationships in order to kind of have some peer support and understanding and learning from one another, and not anybody ever trying to be the one inventing the wheel that's already been done type of thing. So
right.
All right, so we have some more. Like I mentioned earlier when we started, some behind the curtain videos to shoot and some content that is there. But I don't want to take any of that content away in this. But when we think about the current pandemic, the crisis that we're walking through, what do you think the church will look like on the other side of this?
Yeah, I've had some conversations with various guys I went to school with and things like that who are pastoring different churches and things, just to kind of talk through and just see what they think. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. One of the things that I expect will happen is a lot of your smaller churches that didn't have a buffer are not going to weather the storm, because they're going to have, I think there's a lot of churches that not fail, but that close. That's a nicer term, that close every year anyway. But when you have 4 months where you can't get the same kind of giving, 4 months, especially churches that were not prepared technologically to be at a distance, and churches that hadn't taken that step. So I think there's going to be a lot of those churches that close, and the people that have been there are going to become sort of nomad orphans looking for a new place. And so I think your churches that, to me, it's the parable of the talents. Yeah. The ones that just, and I don't mean it in a negative way, like if a church fails or closes, that means it wasn't faithful, but the church that wasn't really prepared for this, what they had will be taken away and it'll be given to the ones that was. And so I think your medium-sized churches, your larger churches will be strengthened because they were equipped to endure and weather the storm. Yeah. So I think they're going to grow and strengthen a bit. And what will happen is the smaller churches are going to go from, because there's a lot of churches that I think are, to put it nicely, decaying. So they still exist, they're there, but they're making payments, they're paying a pastor, they've got utilities things and all this stuff, and they're really just like waiting to die. And so I think a lot of those are going to shut down. And what will happen is there'll be a new surge of essentially fresh churches, and there'll be new, because I think there'll be a big push for church planting, because I think what will happen is a lot of those churches are going to go into other, so your medium and large churches are going to get bigger, but then there's going to be a big outcry for that intimate church and for that little bit smaller setting, because some people really do prefer that. So I think what will happen is there'll be a lot more new church planters going in with fresh wind and fresh energy. Because a lot of the pastors, you're 65 years old, you've been doing this your whole life, you're kind of just doing it, do it. You're not going to restart, I think, for a lot of them out of that. So I think that'll be one of the factors that changes the face of it some. To what degree, I don't know, but I think that's going to be a factor. And I think there's going to be an increased desire for digital content. I think what people during this time are finding is, my hope is that they're learning, they're kind of, wow, it's really great to be able to grow more and to be able to engage more. And so I think there's going to be an increased demand for, give us more than just a sermon on Sunday, give us some practical content, give us some relatable content. And so I think there's going to be an increased demand for stuff like this, right? To engage them during the week, where they can kind of grab it at their, when they've got time. Sure. And that way they can kind of grow and be fed little snacks, I guess, throughout the week. You got the big meal on Sunday, but I think there's going to be an increased appetite for more, because a lot of things are going to be there's going to be more of that we've been doing it for a couple of months now, with people kind of going, I spent more time in the Word, spent more time on this. And hopefully my biggest hope is that there's just a bigger priority for church, for community and for connection, because this has forced us all to slow down a little bit. I know there's some people that are going nuts, gangbusters, trying to work and do all this other stuff. But for a lot of people, it's you're home with your family, and you're like, wow, this is great. Why do we do so many things that keep us out so that we can't have this? So I'm hoping that we all take a percentage of stuff out of our life, create some more margin for things that really matter. And I could see that happening, at least in the lives of some. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm we get feedback from different people, and in people in different situations, home situations or work or situations. I think I'm excited and intrigued to see kind of once we feel like we're on the other side of this thing, whenever that might be. I'm not sure when we're going to feel that or not. It might be 2021. But when we're on the other side, just to hear from people that kind of the testimony of what going through something like isolation and, this type of thing has done to their home life, to their, being able to be around their family, maybe more so than any other time, and what it's creating as far as a hunger to be, more intentional or connected at home, or from a church side. honestly, I don't know. I don't know, not to disagree with you, but I think it's still maybe a little early to figure out what the church looks like at the end of this. I got to participate in a survey recently that I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that survey and hearing, from pastors around the country, and hopefully learn a little bit more about how they kind of are seeing what's going to happen either locally in their congregation or in their their geographical region. What's happening as far as if it's some of the things that we've read or heard is church plants are going to struggle because it's always a struggle to start a church anyways unless you have a big church behind you kind of backing you, and from a financial standpoint we know kind of how all that works, but then you not being able to gather and build momentum, and build that kind of surge to have people getting excited about what you're doing because you're not able to gather. Church plants seem to be at the top of the list when this thing started, as far as maybe not being able to hold on, depending on how long this went. I'm not sure. I mean, you're right. I do think there is a financial part in this that will play to see, if hopefully, I mean, I'd hate for that to be a reason that churches have to kind of close doors. I'm hoping and trusting that maybe that won't be any of the reasons, but maybe it's something that God's,
pruning process.
Yeah. Well, God has kind of weave something out of this that's going to be even better for that congregation or two congregations coming as one. I mean, you might see more mergers or acquisitions or that type of thing, within the church world. And those really aren't words that we use within the church ministry world, but certainly coming out of this, that I think that might be something that happens on the other side of this. I
mean, I got a buddy that's a church planner, and they started off, I think, about 2-3 years ago, and they still don't have their own building.
Yeah.
And so it's like a unique challenge because their church is already kind of used to being nomadic.
Right.
And so that may even be kind of a surge of things that we see is churches that don't get so locked into this is our space, we're going to build these walls.
Right.
But churches, because you've got content that you can do like this, churches that focus more on we'll go here, we'll go there, and they tend to move around less tied to a building. And the expenses that come with that.
Right.
So there may be a bit more of a flexible mobile church. Or the other part of it, I joke with a buddy of mine, I was like, everybody could just wake up when this thing's over and be like, whew, that was weird. All right, let's go back. And it could go completely back to the way it was.
Yeah.
And so you can't never predict, but it's just going to go, and here's what I think could happen.
Yeah.
So
definitely
weird to think about.
Any questions, Tom? All right. Last thing, and then we'll kind of wrap up. Going back to questions that we get asked and stuff, and this has been going on for feels like many years now. It's only hasn't been that many. Is kind of the team teaching approach that we've adopted and have been using and working Pastor Mark into that as well. I get asked that question about how does that work? How does the flow feel? All that. So talk a little bit about kind of that approach, if you will.
I think it's honestly, to have some kind of balance is very important in that. I started at a church. I preached basically every week other than the 2 weeks of vacation that I got, and we had a Wednesday night service. So I was speaking 104 times a year.
Right, yeah.
And you do that for like 2 years, and it's very difficult to sustain, and you're exhausted, you're fatigued, the quality of your content's going down because you're always rushing.
Right.
And so what I see a lot of now, especially in your bigger churches where you have higher quality, tend to have higher quality content, is your main speaker is only talking 30 times a year. And that number I think has been decreasing every couple of years to make it more balanced so that you can, because it's so, people don't understand, like you're not just standing up there and talking, there's your whole life as going into one message, years of preparation plus hours of preparation in that week. And there's so much time, and it's very draining, that having a week in between can really help refresh and kind of where you're not like, I finish a sermon and then Monday I got to start cramming for the next sermon, and you don't even have time to catch your breath because there's so much to do. So I think it's really important to have a little bit of those breaks for the communicator. I mean, even I love to teach. Like, it's one of my favorite, that's my primary, I think, gifting and passion.
We know.
Right. I know everybody's like, add Mark in here. I'm like, no, get Mark out of here. I don't want to give up any of my weeks.
We know. All of us know.
But there's still that refreshing break that it's like, I know I do this better when I have time in between.
Sure.
And so I think that's really important. And then the way it works with us here, the interesting thing I think is really fascinating I've had numerous conversations where people said, "Oh yeah, you said this in a sermon." I said, "That wasn't me. That was Rick." And
it was all the good things, right?
Right. Oh, yeah,
never had anybody say that to me about your sermons. So,
but I think what happens is it's the content is so our theology and our content stuff is so aligned and so down the same page. I think there's times where we've both said the same things. We've had quotes that are almost identical, and so I think because we line up so much biblically, what we say. It's hard for people to even remember which one of us was it that said it. Because I have people tell me all the time, like, I don't remember which one of you that said it, but it was this quote. And I was like, I don't remember if that was me or him either. Yeah. And so I think that's really cool because the major difference is just style. Yeah. And so it gives us an opportunity to kind of connect with two different audiences. Right. People who relate more to your style, more to mine, or people who just kind of like that it stays fresh because he just doesn't, if you eat, apple pie every day, it gets old no matter how much you love it. Anything you do every time, you start to lose a flavor for it. So it's like, it keeps things fresh. Bringing it back. I
knew you'd somehow work a unique analogy in there. I definitely, the team teaching has been very helpful for me personally, just for that very reason of being able to kind of catch your breath from week to week and having some breaks and being able to kind of refresh your own kind of mental capacity so that you can study better, focus better, be more intentional, be hearing clearer from God when He gives you the content or what He wants you to say and all of that. I definitely think it's been really really good personally for me, and I do, because we are two completely different communicators in our style and in our delivery. I do, and then you add Mark into the mix, who's also learning and growing in communicating, and he's different than us as well. And so I actually like the fact that we have the two kind of different, not opposite or opposing or anything like that, but just do two different styles, because I think we connect or reach people differently each time, and God uses that to the advantage of the kingdom. And so and I agree. I think you are seeing more churches kind of spreading that teaching part out, or trying to give a little help here and there to primary communicators so that they can be fresh and can deliver that word exactly how God would want them, and they're not rushed and they're not pressed and they're not trying to write messages or trying to put those things together in a place of just spiritual exhaustion or anything like that.
So dried out. It's like
you're
trying to put together so much stuff.
And then what happens is, I think when you're in those places, but Sunday's coming, right? There's no one's going to stop that clock, that you tend to just put stuff in there maybe you've already said, or you just you repeat
just
yourself,
say something
or you
rather
just
than
say something instead
say.
of actually and I think that's more harmful to the body instead of helpful. And so definitely has been good. I know we hear different types of feedback when it comes to you teaching, me teaching, Mark teaching, or anybody else teaching, and the hope and the goal is that people just realize that we're doing we're surrendered and submitted to God in those preparation weeks, and trying to just be that vessel for His voice when we're given the opportunity to stand up there and share His word, and so and God does the rest. I mean, that's where we end, right?
Yeah, we're not doing much if we're doing our job right.
So
we're just kind of standing there or walking back and forth.
Well, so we're going to wrap up, guys. Don't forget, we are in day 23 of the 30-day challenge. We are almost over to the end of the 30-day challenge. I know there's a lot of questions coming up about what's going to happen, when we meet, and again, all that. Again, we don't have any real clear answers for you right now, so I don't want to just kind of jump into something and not give you and not have a clear answer. So just keep praying, keep tuning in. We'll keep sharing with you guys, connecting with you guys, and praying for you. So next live with Rick and Tyler is Saturday at 3, so we'll see you then.